able to show this graph is the answer to this question. This graph tells what is the right methodology of developing AI systems. Okay, so let's understand this. Uh, this we can- and with that will come a lot of do's, don'ts, best practices. The graph also tells what is the right hiring strategy. I'm sure as leaders, some of you would be, should I hire a PhD or an undergrad? When should I hire a master's guy? Right? The graph gives an answer to these kind of questions as well. Okay, quick one. I hope all of us know this, right? This AI bubble and stuff like that. The biggest problem is unless businesses see a lot of outcomes, the tech is not going very far. It can be the jazziest thing, but for a business guy, if it doesn't move a needle, it's a liability. Even for a startup founder, that's the reality. As I see, we might love to build the greatest model on earth, right? But the best example I have seen is Alexa, way ahead of its time, right? Long before when conversational or voice AI was even a thing. In 2021, I think 95% of the team was fired because Alexa wasn't built for play this song or how is the weather outside, what should I wear. It was primarily built as an interface to Amazon.com, which never took off. I don't know how many of you know, but the whole core team came from a company called Nuance. Nuance has been into speech AI since 1980s. Back then, it was one of the greatest teams around in terms of speech. And Jeff Bezos and team emptied Nuance research team overnight, literally overnight, to go for Alexa. But the point is, unless you get outcomes, AI is not going to happen. We all know this, right? If I were to answer what is single biggest problem with AI today, I would say this image. Every founder, every VC, everybody is running after the price, this $1 million, $1 billion, whatever it means, basis on model, not on other aspects. Evals, data, best practices, a lot of other things are just being bypassed blatantly. In my humble understanding, one needs to get six pillars right: people, governance, economics, process, modeling, and technology. That is where the magic really happens. The analogy for that is sorry, I think one of the slides got lost. Okay. So let's take two examples. One is Boeing, one is United Airlines. Boeing builds planes and engines. Boeing has to be obsessed with building best in class engines, right? But can United Airlines do the same? And should United Airlines do the same? The answer is no. United is not in that business. United is into the business of flying people from place A to place B, taking care of time, convenience, and safety. The one that is better on all three is the airline that's going to build the one. The analogy is OpenAI, these foundational companies versus the applied AI companies. So foundational companies are obsessed with models, they should be. One of the things that I have seen in my journey is a lot of applied AI companies get obsessed with model without understanding that's not where the true value lies for them. So for them, you have to get all other pieces right, which is the plane, the takeoff times, what you serve inside, what is the difference between economy, premium economy, and business class, even how the handles of the seat feels, which is the UX of a product, right, can have far greater impact than just by saying that I will perfect my engine. Engine is necessary but not sufficient. You need a great engine in any airline. We all know that. Without that, it can't fly. Same is for an AI product. What I'm going to talk today is just one point on that. What is the right methodology to develop AI system, right? So let me introduce a notion for this. I call this capability curve. Okay, let's understand what is capability curve. So any software can do certain things, right? Let's call that the capability of that software. Correct? So if you take a calculator, it can do certain things. There are a lot of things in the world it can't do. but it can do certain things: addition, subtraction, multiplication. If it's a scientific calculator, 110 other things. That capability we try and plot on the y-axis. Okay. Now to develop that capability, it takes time. Nothing happens overnight, right? So time is on the x-axis. Am I clear? There's an, so it's an abstract notion, right? What a software can do for you, I call that as the capability of the software. Clear? Now try and imagine what does the capability curve for a traditional software look like. So imagine you're building a calculator itself. In the older days, not using vibe coding and all that stuff today. Let's go a couple of years back. What does this curve would look like?
Over the time, we will add more capability. We'll keep adding
Yeah,
features.
we'll keep adding more capability.
Linear.
Should it be linear?
Or exponential. It could be exponential also. A lot of time features add exponential value also.
You flatten
It
out.
makes
Yeah, I think it will flatten out. Like, it will get harder to add capabilities. over time,
Saturation.
right? Like,
So one
like
is
it will-
why an exponential curve? Somebody said an exponential curve. Why? Intuitively? No, for software development. I mean, just a normal software.
Okay.
Just a normal calculator. We are developing a calculator here. There are features, there is time.
And then flatten basically. I mean, I think it, like
So-
Gmail has like earlier, like there are some of course features came in, but then almost like
Yeah, but
flattened
why
down.
should it be an exponential curve? Any intuitive idea? So when you begin, so I mean pretty much it, right? The curve would be something like this. When you start,
Initially, it
you will
be,
take time because you'll plan and do a little things, what if to be done, who will do, and all that stuff. Then you'll start coding, right? And as you implement, you'll add very quickly. And at some point of time, I think this curve will miss, it will start to flatten out. It will start to taper
Yeah.
because now the complexity of the software is high. So when you add a new module, it will take longer time to bake in, test, and all that stuff, right? So the curve, do we have a marker here?
It's more S shaped.
Yeah, it's a more S shape. So it's gonna be something like this, right? Kind of. I don't know, there's a lot of noise around it. So the curve is going to be something like this, very intuitively across all softwares. Right? Let us take the, if I'm missing, amortized curve across all software. Anyways. Okay, so now I'm going to ask the following question. Let us go to the pre-LLM era of AI development. What will the curve look like?
very bootstrap required a lot of time because you, and then it would probably something like this. Like you,
So I know a lot of you are LLM era folks, right? But let's take a thought experiment. Let's take a step back. Pre-November 22 when GPT came, right? So what would AI development would look like if I were to model that as a curve? That's still a capability versus time.
Yeah.
That still remains.
and it will much like it will take more time to build initial capabilities, right? Because it will take you a lot of things that you have to build infra. Or
Yeah.
After that, it will start driving value,
Yeah.
right? So maybe little delayed, but
Yeah.
still going that way.
Okay, and then
And then it's again going to flatten out because the
Yeah.
model that you're using, its
This
capability,
is-
the architecture is going to get
Still a risk of with maybe a lesser scope.
Yeah.
So-
Little delayed, but yeah.
something like this, right?
Yeah.
So what is it is one more elongated initially,
Yeah.
then it will accelerate, and then it will mature up at some point of time, right? Let's try and understand this curve in a little more detail before we come to how LLMs have changed all of this game. So why is this elongated? Any ideas?
so more time to develop
Yeah, planning is also a
But why do you need more time?
because the model requires you to collect
Because you are building a model.
clean the data, ensure that
So back in our days, if I can use that phrase, the first worry used to be, do you have even the data for this? Right? And obviously collecting, cleaning, organizing, labeling data could take easily months to sometimes even years. Right? And then you're also meanwhile trying to figure out what problem you're solving, what market you're addressing. Think of yourself as a startup founder right now, or AI startup founder. Think that way, right?
and
So-
getting rid of the data silos is another thing.
Yes.
That was a big one.
So first you understand the business problem, you first model the business problem. Then you ask, is this even an AI problem? Do you even require this? I think this has become more important question now, but we look at that later. Do you have the right data for it? You set the metrics. So this is exactly what I and Kuldeep were discussing. One of the best practices I think is you set your metrics on day one rather than much later. Because metrics should be an unbiased evaluation of how things happen. How is a black box, right? Uh, we'll have a separate discussion. This is where product managers have to play the greatest role, but that's a separate story. And then you have, and when you set metrics, you set both kind of metrics, business as well as personal metrics, and it is important that both talk to each other. It should not happen that one is going up, the other is stagnant. Then I think something wrong with your metrics. Anyways, then you have larger design decisions like is this going to be a real time or a batch system? Is it going to be a cloud edge? All that kind of stuff, right? Do you have any constraints on the problem? You will set up data pipelines. Then you will come to the question: what kind of a AI problem? Is it supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning, right? And then you will build a model. Okay, you will deploy, you will test everything end to end, and you'll do various different formatting. Why did I say build a model?
Because it might not be the final.
Because typically the idea was to quickly get to the market, right? And the way to do is build the simplest approach. There's also something called Occam's razor, which I think should be the most used term on most people are not even aware of it in the LLM era. The art in AI is not to build the model. The art in AI is always to build the simplest model that will get the job done. Because the technical debt of AI models absolutely kills teams and efforts if your company and product survives long enough. Okay, so we all understand this phase
But
broadly.
this isn't quite linear, right? So you obviously going to go back,
Yeah, yeah,
refine the model,
yeah, yeah,
feature
yeah, yeah. You
engineer,
keep
all
on
that
doing it,
bits.
but at least
At some point, you
you
get more.
quickly get to the first version,
Yeah.
right? That is the most important thing. As a product team, you want to get to the first version as fast as possible. Of course, you improve and stuff like that, right? Uh, a lot of teams tend to do this, but a lot of teams define इसको अभी छोड़ देते हैं अभी तो इसको करते हैं आगे चलते हैं. Now, what do you do now? Let us suppose you have gone to the market, your product finds traction. What do? Your model is your sales system is not perfect, far from it. Your customers will come, they will shout, especially the ones who are paying, that you need to improve. So you will push your team to improve. And this is where the iterations will start to happen. So this is where what will you typically do? You'll start to test more complex algorithms, right? Rather than linear and logistic regression, you might bring trees and forests and all that SVM and other stuff. I'm again going slightly older era, just to give a sense of
The
it,
good old days.
because then the graph is going to change to the LLM era, and that is where I want to bring out those differences. So this is where exactly what I was saying. Most of the hard work is already done. We've already set up the whole environment. What you now want to do is quickly improve your model. So you run very fast iterations where you focus only on the model. You try and go from A to the model.
But I think I, I would suggest that you also go and look at what other data sources that are more expensive that you could buy in could bring. You kind of still do some data engineering. So it's not
Yes.
only models.
It is not. But again, I've taken a very 20,000 feet view of all that happens. But obviously, you look at all those pieces as well. But obviously, right, how good is the engine of the plane always matters, right? So even with data, what you essentially do is improve the model itself.
No, no, agreed. But what I've always used as a philosophy is that start with the cheapest way to the first model,
Yeah.
right? So the data that you have, use that, right? If there are silos, leave that for a while unless it's really really important. And you keep adding and
Yeah.
enriching the data, right? If you have to buy data, for example,
Yes.
you do it later.
Yes. And you will also improve your metrics, you will improve a lot of other
Of
stuff.
course.
But essentially, what you try and get is so what you do is you try various algorithms that are known, right? You benchmark performance, The one that is better, you take it to production. The ones that is not, you leave it, right? And you replace the old with the new one and you measure the delta, which is exactly what Kuldeep has essentially talked about. Right? At some point of time, the system is acceptable enough. Prior to this, you might not even be showing the output of your system to the end user. Maybe,
Yes, this is an iterative process.
right? It's a very highly iterative process, right? So now the system is acceptable enough so that your users can even start using and take the subsequent downstream decisions, whatever that is. So you will get to from point A to point B, right? So you go from simpler to complex approach. You iterate very fast. You also look at the kind of mistake your model is making, because typically in that analysis lies the idea of what should I do next, right? And at some point of time, your gains will start to saturate, right? That's when you know that you have hit B. You've started to get very close to the point. Everybody will be so far.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So this phase, what I call as acceleration ramp, is all about going from her to the model. This is where you typically get highest return of investment per unit effort. So for per hour or per day of effort, you're getting the maximum returns. Okay. And typically, time-wise back in the days, this could take 3 to 12 months, but that's fine. Let us look on this. Now, what starts to happen? So, you are a company who is an AI first company. What is an AI first company by definition? Not a company that is doing AI. That is not the definition of AI first in my understanding. The essence of AI first is the very value prop is rested on AI. And if you don't get AI right, you just fall apart. So in this case, let us look at Tesla, for example. Right? Tesla does not get its autopilot better or higher. It's going to be a problem. So this is when you're building the fourth, the seventh, maybe the 10th iteration of the system itself, not just the model, entire system itself. Right? This is where you have pushed the system performance to its limits. When I say performance, I'm still talking of the precision, recall, AUC, ROC, all those metrics that matter to you. This is where you try newer approaches, newer algorithms, not just known algorithms. This is where your team will actually go ahead and create newer class of algorithms, not just known stuff. Right? You'll find your team will often write more equations than code. Right? This is a classic sign of this phase. Newer mathematical form formulations. If the problem really matters to the company, you might even create multiple teams. This is where companies even go for deep academic collaborations.
Fine.
So, in most cases, most companies never even reach this stage. They die much before this. Most of the companies, especially startups, die near A itself because product market fitting है बाकी तो दूर की बात है. Uh, and doing this makes sense only when the AI problem you're solving is at the very heart of the business. The entire business of the company runs on that one or 10 problems, whatever that is, right? And you even go into this phase when the 2% gain in system accuracy or model accuracy matters to you. And you know this could take months, maybe even years. Right? So for Tesla, even today it matters. I improve my autopilot by 1%. Absolutely. But the curve starts to plateau. Why does curve starts to plateau? And I think this is the most important point we want to drive before I come to the LLM phase of the world. So AI lives in the long tail of edge cases. Right? Anybody who has done AI long enough would know you can always solve what is the meaty part in the middle, but then there are always these edge cases scenarios that your system is not able to get it right. And rather than seeing an exponential gain in the system accuracy, what you start to see is a reverse effect where you have exponential effort for very marginal gain. You might have to go and create massive data sets altogether. You might have to bring the best in class researchers. You might have to bring in all the machinery that is possible today in the world to improve that system. But those edge cases now start to matter in your business part.
So like I think one of the example is self-driving car, right? So in 2006 or whatever, right? People said, "Oh, self-driving vehicles." Elon Musk said that by 2000, another 5 years and we will be there, right? But that is all edge cases after that, right? It was largely there but not there, right? Same for radiology, right? Even Geoff Hinton predicted that, oh, by 2015 or whatever the date is, that we'll not need radiologists. And actually, the demand for radiologists is all time high right now. Even when there's so much, because I think market expands in general. So, right, you are doing more better. The affordability increases, right? So, and there are still errors that AI algorithms are making in reading reports.
And then, if you happen to be in a business where cost of a mistake is very high, then it becomes even bigger a problem. So if a chatbot says, rather than recommending this hotel, it recommended that hotel, that's okay. It's a bad experience, I'm not debating that, but it's not life altering. But like in Tesla, the last crash that happened, it assumed this human to be a this water bucket that is kept on the highway. And it actually crashed the car into this. Because the Chinese had got good. Anyways,
Even the Waymo, they drove between a shootout, a gang shootout.
yes.
I mean, that's an edge case of an edge case.
But why to miss all the fun? Let us drive through it.
No, like I think there was a meme going around. It was actually meme Bullock card. The Tesla has never seen it.
Bullock cart. Oh, yeah.
Bullock
Yes.
card, yeah. Because
That's why Kohli bought a Tesla, no?
Yeah, not
in,
So then November 22 happened, Chat GPT came, right? And in my opinion, the graph changed. Let's understand why. What is the three biggest changes these LLMs or Chat GPTs of the world brought?
model is affordable now. You don't have to spend years building a model. Whatever.
It's a
Like
commodity.
So
I think.
model is
Bootstrap.
commoditized.
bootstrapping model is
More
bootstrapping model. Like getting to a model reduced to almost from years to weeks.
maybe even an hour because
Like
now it's an
good,
API call.
I'm saying good model. Right?
Yeah. Okay, good model. So getting to a model or getting to a product became a job of ours. No longer the days or the months that were needed. To start a company, you don't need data. At least to start. When you're fighting the battle towards the end and there are only 2, 3 players left in the market, then it's a different story, right? So the point that you were making of the moat doesn't matter here. If you can survive the product market fit and capturing decent size, then it will start to matter.
But I think those are the startups that don't survive, right? The ones that don't think about how they create their own data asset.
Yeah.
Because the next version of
Yeah,
ChatGPT will wipe you.
So what you're saying is it matters over there, but thinking for that needs to be done earlier. Agree. But in the initial part, I don't need a data set to begin with. I can start very quickly, which is why the moment GPT happened, the market was full of demos. Everybody had a demo to show to a VC. Everybody was an AI entrepreneur. Everybody was an AI product owner.
But how many of them survive, right?
That's the story.
That's the story.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not debating that. And survival is a question of a lot of other factors also. What you're solving, how you're solving the strategy.
But I think the fundamentals of understanding whether this use case is really an AI use case and all the things that good things that you talked about are still valid,
Yes.
right? And most AI solutions are not LLM only solutions.
Absolutely.
They are systems
Absolutely.
that utilize assets that may have been created, which are machine learning models, deep learning models, as part of it.
So the analogy I give exactly to the point that you made is the world knew how to mix chicken and rice, put it in a pressure cooker, make a chicken pulao, sell it for 100 rupees a plate. Somebody said you can do a lot different. Make a biryani itself for 1000 rupees a plate. But biryani doesn't happen in a pressure cooker. It requires a different process. And most important thing in a biryani is spices, not the chicken and the rice. The cardamom and all those things matter. So that's exactly the point you are saying. There are a lot of these small ingredients, what you're solving data and all that matter. But that's not what I'm talking here. I'm not talking of the success of an AI startup. What I'm saying is, in general, the right way of methodology of building AI systems.
So the only thing that I would again argue, and I'm sorry I won't take too much time, but acceptable performance is a variable. So where you have this dotted line that says acceptable performance. Now, a lot of enterprises, their acceptable performance would be well above what you can achieve with LLMs right
So,
now,
see,
right?
it will depend on the use case to use
Depend
case,
on the product itself, right?
and I can give two examples. That I believe is more a function of market and product. So for a chatbot, it can be little low to begin with. To begin with,
Most enterprises won't accept.
which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're the master of the market,
Huh.
but at least to get to 5 to 10 customers, maybe good enough. But a case where the acceptable performance is very high is virtual trial. If you think carefully, even today, no virtual try-on company is really successful. Why is that the case? What is virtual try-on? I take a shirt or a pant or whatever clothing, I put it on me. How do I look will determine whether I'm going to press the sale purchase button or not. And we all know e-commerce is powered by females, not by males. Now imagine a female puts on a suit or some accessory, and a part of the nose is coming from here, right? Because the virtual try-on model is not good enough. So what is good enough? The benchmark there goes very high, maybe 97%, 98%, as opposed to a 70% of chatbot. Anyway, but why did the curve get short circuited? So now you can go from O to the purple point. Sorry, I forgot to put a label over there. In a matter of days, within 2 to 3 days, you can quickly overnight slog, build a product, put it out in the market, start to sell like crazy, figure out product market fit very, very quickly, and your accuracy would be better than the first model you would have built 5 years ago in a similar apples to apples comparison. Okay. Now what happens after this? So let's go into more nuances of how things have progressed in last 3 years. So I now argue the curve has even more evolved. So you start with a problem, quickly figure out some stuff. So that's O2X, and O2X is getting compressed to literally hours now. You do a LLM, bunch of LLM calls here and there, OpenAI, Claude, whatever you want to use, get to X spawn. Now, what do you do? And this is often acceptable enough that your customers will start to pay you. They will start to pay you, unless enterprises try to with that part of it. What do you do after X prompt? You'll now do a fine tuning. You will do a little of RAG. These other class of techniques that are there. You will get to O prime, correct? Now, what do you do from O prime? So, think from a product point of view. Highly likely, you are now 2, 3 competitors left in the market. Most others, for whatever reason, are not there. Now, you further want to improve the system. What do you do? What is the way out? You can't go and build a GPT. If you could have, that's a separate story. But we are the United Airlines, not the Boeing of the world. This is where the old curve comes back. Why? Well, now your only option is to go back, start building better class of models, and all the old practices that mattered back then will matter now.
But when you say old class of models, what do you refer to?
Not the algorithm. The algorithm might change,
Yeah.
but you still go build a lot of things from first.
Practices like data pipelines, iteration, monitoring, all of that.
All of that will not come back, right?
Right.
All of that will stuff come back. And if it really matters, you start building your own foundational stuff and all that.
But then I mean, this is where kind of guardrails come in also big time and so on, right? I mean, the LLM world, now we are talking about different kind of nuances.
So most companies are not even here in the current phase of the kind of companies that we know of. Right?
But I think, look, just to be devil's advocate,
Sure.
regardless of this one, right? Like, if you look at the value, like, I mean, if I don't say capability or I just overly focus on the return.
Huh.
If you look at Cursor's revenue,
Yeah.
it's looks humongously like this exponential, right?
Yeah, but then it will also start to taper at some point of time.
It will. But what I'm saying is, so you are saying they are still in like till O prime?
Which
It will
Cursor.
Cursor.
I think there's a nuance to it. You're just looking at the revenue, not the retention. I think retention is equally
See,
important.
see again, see, and this is where I think our background matters. In machine learning, we tend to look at individual examples. The world where I come from, right, theoretical computer science, the idea is to try and create a more generalized theory.
Yeah.
There are exceptions. I'm not debating that at all. Now, where exactly cursor is on the graph, we can debate.
Yeah.
But where does this?
I mean, it's not about cursor also, but mostly like if you pick some 10 AI native companies, which is surprising to me also. Like being in the AI business for like 15 years, like it's
So
just
these
so
are-
surprising to me that people can add capabilities at that level, scale the business, right? Like it's crazy.
See, business is not just a function of modeling. Business is also a function of what
Other
what
stuff that you do,
problem,
GTM.
market size,
Yeah.
your GTM, who is funding you. There are a lot of other parameters also.
Sure.
So that's like building the perfect biryani.
Yeah.
The customer pays for the biryani. The customer doesn't care what you put into that.
Yeah.
It has to taste bloody good, which is why half of India, I think that's what one of the metrics from Zomato or
Swiggy.
half of India loves and it remains the most sold dish, right? But that's the point I'm trying to make. Uh, the more important thing I wanted to talk is for a lot of business people, they believe that the graph is the dotted line. We'll start in AI, magic will happen, and we'll grow, right? But a lot of founders miss this point that the curve actually plays out this. And if you want to survive the battle beyond acceptable performance, the hard work has to be put in now. So it's like the Michael Phelps of the world. You want to win 8 gold medals, go and spend 5 years non-stop practicing. That is what got him gold medals, not just sitting and dreaming that we will become a unicorn. That's the point I wanted to make, right? The second question I wanted to just is this curve also gives a broad sense of what should be your hiring strategy. Any shots at that? What kind of talent should I have in my AI team? Can we infer from this graph?
No, I wouldn't infer from this graph like that, but I think largely way I have 5-7 years back I used to only hunt for PhDs and masters in this. I have stopped doing that or whatever. I made it more nuanced. Now I hunt for more bachelors, right? Plus a mix plus of like I stopped hiring PhDs.
Why?
I think largely what I'm
You're a
saying.
liability?
That is true. But it is just because the field is changing so fast and you need very evolutionary thinking, right? And a lot of time PhDs, I mean, it's not. I'm not saying PhDs are not evolutionary thought, right? Not
Yeah,
saying-
you are yourself.
I will not contradict myself there. I will not contradict myself. So anyway, but I think point here is कि, like you need more cross-functional skills. Like you are looking for more engineers who can do prompting, who can also do evaluation, who can also write a bit of code, who can put the full stack, whatever. Right?
Always.
So,
Just to tie it to
Always,
that,
yeah.
I
Always.
think
yeah.
what Anuj
I'm
said,
asking a question.
Not always, not always. So like the moment you start your AI system start getting more mature, you start hunting for PhDs and masters again, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Generalize to expert.
exactly. So
yeah,
initial things, the generalization wins over expertise.
Yeah.
But after a point, expertise still needs. Like
Okay.
I'm
So,
struggling that on data pipeline.
From a product point of view, what was point A? Point A is this product market fit, which is very important stuff. What do you want? You want the fastest way to get to
get
that,
to them. Yeah.
right? That is what the LLMs have enabled for us. Today, you don't need, exactly to his point, you don't need a PhD. The PhD on day one will come with his own idealisms of academia. And you're like, भैया नहीं चाहिए 3 दिन में बनाना है मेरे को funding भी उठाना है, right? There are a lot of other things. You are honest. This is where you need general purpose people, especially who are good at hackathons. तो 2 रात में बैठ के चीजें असेंबल करके बनाना. मुझे नहीं R&D करनी, मुझे नहीं चीजें अच्छे से बनानी. Assemble it enough that I can take it to my customer and I can showcase. I can sell. Correct? What happens from A to B? Yeah.
there's a question. When
Yeah.
do you need engineers at that point? Do you even need engineers?
See, engineer is a generic term. People who can assemble things from me are engineers.
True. I mean, the point is that if, let's say, the point to POC, I'll call A as a POC.
Yeah.
Okay, where point to POC is mostly playing around with prompts and these models and doing API calls. I think even a decent product manager can do it. You don't need to have a tech understanding to do it.
Yes, but in a market like India, getting that kind of a product manager is a difficult piece, and that's a separate question. But for me, anybody who can assemble, for me, it's a game of Lego toys now.
But the assembly is also AI supported now, right? So with the vibe coding and the tools that are there, you can actually product managers are
This is
putting
saying
together.
That makes
This
a
will
product
keep
manager and
using-
engineer.
Yeah.
That is also
Or even a single person team. I mean,
Yeah,
like-
yeah,
single
yeah.
person team.
There was a discussion that I was having with a product manager in Paytm. Same thing he pointed out that it can be done by the product manager itself.
Correct.
So
I think you need
I
to have
also
an
agree
intent.
with you.
What about
Different-
situations
different
where you
part.
need a lot
Diversity is
of
a very
domain
big word.
specific
So
like
there's a limit.
domain
I
specific
don't think
expertise, let's say.
if you need a PhD, is
But
in the
such a
see,
expert.
only simply
See,
what
there
a
are
product
always-
manager-
Manager everything, right?
There are always exceptions. What I have tried to create is a generalized theory.
Yeah.
See, you have to understand any theory is never perfect. It will not fit all scenarios. It also suffers from the problem of edge cases. Like
I think it's not the roles, it's the capability. Whether that
Yeah.
person has the
Yeah,
capability to
absolutely.
really
But the point-
design a product, right?
The point is, this is getting shrunk. This A now has moved to X. Now it will become further. Maybe in 1 hour we will be. But then what after that? After that, do you think the same team can continue?
Then you
What
need-
has been your experience with this? Why?
Because then you get into the nitty-gritties of things. You start seeing exceptions, like you said, the dog team. That's what they said.
But does that happen before that? So in my opinion, what I have found seen is most of early teams are very bad at evaluations.
Yeah.
They have this anecdotal evaluation. मैंने 5 बार रन करके देख लिया, वो चल गया, हो गया. AI ऐसे नहीं बनता. Right? Your ability to create a data set, evaluate rigorously, and then test.
Also, I think the other
So-
point is sorry, just to add, early teams, man, people are pretty bad, like at least context engineering. Right? Like for example, I'm doing it for health. Then that person who is writing prompt needs to understand a bit of health. It can't just be black box.
I think early stage में though that context is there because the founder himself or herself is
So
involved.
I'm talking about the V0.
Still, like even like to put evaluation, for example, that person has to understand it. Because founder can give him a top-down view, but
I think early stage में चल जाता है because the rigor that the founder has sort of takes care of the evaluation.
Is often good enough.
yeah,
And if the vision is transferred, so founder has to bring more of the vision. The engineer has to translate that into the context. अब उतना translation capability होना चाहिए.
वही मैं कह रहा हूँ कि इंजीनियर को
उसको skill set कह सकते हैं.
लाइक फाउंडर सेज कि यार मेरे को थोड़ा मोर रिपीटेबल बनाना है, इसमें तो मोर रिलायबल बनाना है. इंजीनियर इमीडिएटली सेज कि यार आई थिंक आई कैन राइट इवेल्स नाउ. Maybe this is the right time. If that conversation is taking place, fine, right? But if that conversation is not taking place,
अब product market fit के बाद क्या होता है? So typically you are now have a couple of companies or clients that are even paying.
you're selling half-baked cake.
Your client will come back and show you that ये काम नहीं करा, ये काम नहीं करा, ये काम नहीं करा. They'll give this anecdotal examples. You start building and changing your system because of that, right? What do you need? You need people who say we understand certain examples did not work, but we have tested it thoroughly. It stands the test of how good our data set is, how good the evaluation metrics are, the process is. So it's like derby horse racing. If done very well, you know which horse is likely to win the most. This is where I found people who are MS in AI, who have published 1 or 2 papers, are often very, very good. Very good. They give greatest ROI for your time, for your money. Because when they are publishing a paper, not that they have the original idea, वो तो PhD वाला या prof का होगा, but they do this evaluation वाला पूरा part, writing that script, data set, metrics, very good.
Plus, they understand probability, which means
That's true.
ठीक है,
they
that
don't
is true.
react to
Yeah.
anecdotal
Yeah.
bad results.
Right. Then what happens after that? So at some point of time you will hit B.
Yeah.
That is when you need people
Specialized most.
who can open up the mathematical foundation. You can understand that underlying this model there are certain assumptions. Whether those assumptions are true in our case or not. And that is when they go and create newer class of models. That is why you often find more equations than code. And this is where I found the PhDs do a far, far better. Right? Now coming back to the point that we are earlier saying
And
the gap.
the other nuance is by this time actually you know what to hire for also because you have get a clarity.
Yeah.
Huh,
Right.
but that is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
The hiring strategy, a lot of people believe undergrad हो गया, उसके आगे कुछ नहीं चाहिए, and they plan budgets and all a lot of things accordingly also. AI doesn't work that way. Right? When you go and tell them I'm going to hire an AI guy and he's going to charge ABC, right? It has implications for the team, for the company, for the VCS. Right? So that's the part of B dash to M. Right? So and this gap between 100% automation and M is the dream run for the open AI of the world, which they are trying to sell currently. And if you want to read more on that, I would strongly suggest there's a book by two Indians called AI Snake Oil,
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Arvind Narayanan and Sayesh. The best thing I loved about that whole book was the anecdote why Sayesh joined Arvind. So Arvind asked him, what is the success criteria for this book? Any answers? What would Said? So Said was a PhD student. Arvind is a tenure track PhD, sorry, professor at Princeton. He said if a couple of big tech companies file lawsuits against us, then I believe we would have done a very good job in this.
And he went around asking that same question to a bunch of PhD advisors.
Yes.
And Arvind was the only person
Yes.
who gave him a good reply.
Yes. Yes. So that's a book I would strongly suggest to anyone. It's a more general thing. It will also beat this idea that LLMs are intelligent. It will tell you LLMs are nothing but a very smart fill in the blank machine. Nothing more than that. But ultra smart. Anyways, I'll take a pause. Any feedback for me? What I tried to solve with a question. What is the right methodology of building AI systems? Claim I'm trying to make is this curve that I've tried to put explains the methodology. You figure out which part of the curve you are in. It tells you what part to focus on, what kind of talent to bring, what kind of things to follow. I have not gone into those details, sorry. I was trying to be a little quick, but there are a lot of details here. What to do there. I would look for feedback. This is not someone else's work, just for those contexts, Karthik knows it. But the book that I wrote back in 2020 contained the last chapter is How to Do AI Right. In there, we had found a blog in 2017. I think this was a founder of a autonomous truck driving company.
Yeah.
He shut down his company, but he had written this blog called The Lessons I Learned. There, he had drawn a very basic graph, and it is from that graph that I got this whole idea. The graph that he had drawn was this one, the first graph that I showed, and that graph remains in the book. The book got published. COVID gave us a lot of time. COVID gave me also time, and then one fine day, this whole idea came to me.
Yeah, well, like I have read AI Snake Oil, not the book, the essay, right? And
No, I'm asking the feedback on this theory that I've tried to.
नहीं, उसी की बता रहा हूँ मैं. I think this also has a lot of overlap, right? In the sense, that, not in terms of thinking of it, but what I'm saying is कि progress will slow. Like for example, we are almost predicting
So the
that.
book focuses more on there are problems AI can solve, there are problems
AI can't solve or whatever.
and don't get carried away by saying that no AI can do everything in class.
नहीं, but I think इसमें ना एक issue है. Like I have a similar graph, अनुज, जो आपका value versus उसका return का graph है ना. I have created it for like some tutorial that I was giving on the
मैंने
maintainability.
इसके रिटर्न में लिखा है
हाँ.
वो ROI का ग्राफ भी है.
नहीं, वो maintainability, for example, how frequently things change, right? Like when do you touch things to change? Like for example, in a traditional ML, you could deploy a model and may not look at like you probably do an upgrade cycle every 3 months or 2 months, whatever, right? And that is fine, right? But now it is pretty much very iterative, right? Or you can't just leave it on itself.
Even in this, all of this is iterative. When you're trying to improve, going from A to B, you might realize that your data set is not neither complete, nor comprehensive, not correct. You'll have to go and do all the stuff.
Yeah, it represents that in some way. Like for example, you might say that capability building will be slow after a point, right?
So within each there is this spiral, I would say, at every point.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there is this whole iteration
Exactly.
happening. That is very much there.
Yeah.
But after that phase of iteration, what? The capability is improvement.
You add capability. So I just drawn it for our internal stuff because people are finding it hard to understand that
हाँ.
वो वाले मॉडल तो तुम कभी अपडेट भी नहीं करते हो ये वाले तुम तीसरे दिन खड़े रहते हो कि अपडेट करना है like that was like where I kind of dropped that graph thing right this
I do believe this is totally depending upon.
These days, like that LLMs, due to the scaling laws, I think we have hit that plateau and LLMs can't move at general intelligence anymore. So, what's your insight on that?
See, this is not about LLM or all. In general, I'm saying
I'm talking.
over a period of time, this curve will keep going straighter and straighter. This X bar will keep on rising quickly. You know, LLMs do global models, word models do. You bring in reasoning. I am not concerned with that part. For me, it's just a model. It's just the engine of the plane.
yeah but I think I somehow like I agree till you with you till B in the new curve right and I still I'm hopeful that given that LLM's capability continues to increase, like underlying, and I agree with some bit to the engine part of the stuff also. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I still feel that you will see a more the plateau.
The curve will keep on getting closer to this line. I'm not debating that. But until then, so if you look at Snapchat, they are not using LLM. They have built their own filters and stuff like that because they had to. But the problem they are solving is very specific to them. See, LLMs are like a general purpose. The way I see is you have a pen drive, लैपटॉप में अटैच करा फिर थोड़ी सी इंटेलिजेंस आती है अब आपको अपना कुछ बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है आप उसको यूज करो तो बेसिक you want to build highly specialized model for your stuff. For the greatest model that will work on your data will not be a general purpose system.
For sure, yeah.
It's a very specialized machine. But that same model will not work for JD and his business. Or,
That's
or
exactly
for me.
this holds only when you are talking about GenAI on the cloud at scale at edge, not on it specifically.
Edge पे this
Because uh, they are not remotely as ubiquitous and as accurate as we think they are for extremely specific tasks. Like if we started uploading our images to Gemini, getting inference on the cloud, that alone would kill our products.
Agreed. But that's where you have this acceptable performance. That varies from use case to use case, problem to problem.
No, I agree. So it's sort of like the scale and the topology of the curve will, the topology of the curve will stay the same. The scale will be variable for our, or other sort of non-Gen AI.
because
offline.
medical वहाँ पे like privacy is very important. So everything has to happen on the edge. There's sort of a concern around privacy. So there'll be again the curve will look similar to the existing ways of doing things. That could be a caveat. I mean, you asked for feedback. What could be?
Yeah.
So that would be a caveat to start off with that. Hey, like, I mean, this
This
works
only works when
Yeah.
you're talking about endpoints.
Yeah, or like cloud first workflows, or there's no privacy angle or privacy concerns.
Anything
So,
else from you?
Arshit, the point that you're making is the value would not be that quicker in a as workflow. That's what you're saying.
Kind of yes, because if something works, I mean, for example, if I use something, something works on OpenAI's APIs, but I have to run my workflows on the edge, so it doesn't help me. Okay.
But given that OpenAI models are getting better and you can leverage to train better small language models, so that will slower but
Ifs and buts.
Yeah,
it's there.
My point
It's-
is, doesn't that all this conversation that you're doing about deploying on the edge or maybe iterating and making better models, doesn't that lie on the B2C part of the curve? B2M, sorry, B2M.
No, A to B. Because if people are not willing to pay you unless they're able to run something on the edge, they won't pay you.
Yeah.
I mean, for my validation, my own sort of satisfaction, I can run it on cloud. But for my customer,
Right, okay.
You got that stability part in the B2M part, but you're that you are
हाँ,
trying to say.
मतलब A to B में आपको कर लेना है.
Yeah, वही कर लेना है and B2M में तो हमें प्रॉपर मिल गया ना कि
जैसे B2 में आपको स्केल करना है आपको. ठीक है कि आपको like features ऐड करने हैं उस पे और verticals में expand करना है, feature capability ऐड करनी है, but the core has to function. I think like you sort of And again, start after shoot was like made during the non-LLM era. Those time पे actually we did spend a good 2-3 months to get the Python code packaged and running on the edge. So we use PyInstaller and all these things. उसमें TensorFlow package करके it took a good 2 months, 3 months. Okay, and that was a time that we had to factor in. We cannot run past that. Okay, so that is also something again like, for a specific use case that would be a caveat.
Okay. Anything else? Anand, anything from you?
I learned about
No, but no feedback.
shorter.
Have you brainstormed with LLM with this thing? So that's the
It tends to miss a lot of nuances and stuff like that.
sure. Right.
You're right. I skipped reading that PDF.
Again, second matters on your audience also. Like here, obviously there are a lot of opinions and a lot of experiences with LLMs. So there's bound to be a bunch of back and forth about.
No, but
again, it's not
which
that
is why it
one
matters to me because I'm trying to create a generalized theory in the
What do you think like can be done to basically kind of make the B2M part also more steeper? Because like in my 3 years of experience, what I've kind of seen is like
PIT will stop. Kuldeep
That's what I'm also asking. So my theory, which I like, no concrete proof, whatever, right? Because it's a theory, right? Uh, I'm thinking that LLM would actually, so B2M might just happen due to other factors than AI. Like business might saturate, target addressable market has reached, competitors, whatever, like equilibrium. And that's why even if you add into AI, it doesn't create value.
But that talks about your accuracy or your AI. And it doesn't talk about the profits or anything else.
So
Your
There was
AI
that is
capability
what
would
your
be-
पीछे एक value का भी था.
I mean, the same thing can also be seen as a return.
Return वाला भी.
How would your return curve look like? Is how I had actually written the first version of the article.
Like for example, ये ad वाला ना, ad recommendation system ले लेते हैं. जो Google and Azure or whatever they built है. And I don't think it's a B2M curve in ad. I don't think nobody can do something which is like this traditional, like it creates a really good ad recommendation system, right? Like whatever is there, like in whatever is running in big ads or Google ads, is only creating an increment, very slightly incremental value year on year. B2M, classic B2M. I'm confirming to that.
No, but even if you see, somebody can always come up. So back in 2016, I don't know. If you were, so there is this paper from YouTube which completely changed the way ad clicking used to happen.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So people are always coming with a new class of algorithm. Just that getting to that is no more easier,
Yeah.
which is why the time is longer, the return is shorter.
Yeah.
And we should work on that problem only if it's a core to this thing. So if a Google AdSense works on it, maybe it makes sense. But the point I'm also trying to say is a lot of companies on day one say हम लोग state of the art AI system बनाएंगे, which is like B2M. It's a very wrong approach.
One possibility that might explain the steepness of the, let me call it the coding part of the curve, is that we have a verifiable environment to train and run on, which is a little trickier for business requirements and a little trickier for real world environments. And therefore, even mathematics now is getting that kind of curve, and PhDs in mathematics are a little worried because of the verifiability in the environment. And therefore, if we get to environments that can simulate larger areas and verify larger domains, we may steepen that curve. Audience reactions with something like mechanical turk equal to Google AdSense, perhaps, but maybe even smaller verifiable environments. We do not need to go as far as humans to look for constraint.
That's a very good question. Like the reason that I keep giving this example, right? For example, why did only coding code so much better with LLMs? Because you could verify. There was a compiler that can produce the code, run it to the compiler, and see whether it's producing the right output or not, and then almost you could build a data flywheel, right? Which is not using a lot of humans, right? So,
And in biology, that's not very far away because we can, to some extent, redesign cells in specific ways. So connecting it to a lab
yeah.
or chemistry connecting
Chemistry,
to a lab
yeah.
and run your experiments. Material science may be poised towards that. So at least some PhDs in material science may feel a bit of an acceleration of that.
IBM has built a chemistry lab which is almost autonomous. So you run an experiment and then something happens.
No, so their story is slightly different with you, right? So even in so the greatest use case of AI is drug discovery,
Yeah.
where the ROI, it's not the chatbots.
The permutation combination is so large that and
So
if it can cut
anybody who
down.
understands maths would know there are two phases in maths. One is conjecture. You come up with a conjecture, then you prove a conjecture.
Sure.
Okay? Why Ramanujan was amazing, not at the second. He was horribly bad at the second. A lot of people don't know. He did not know how to prove. But you give him absurd sequences, he would come up with conjectures that most people could not. So when he took those two notebooks to Cambridge, that is what these guys saw. And we asked them to take actual courses so that he can prove some of the stuff. The point I'm trying to make is where AI has played a lot of role is what if drug discovery? These are basically compounds connected in certain ways. So AI is able to come up with these conjectures which are extremely weird.
Yeah. But
A human, I'm sure all of you have heard the benzene story where he woke up one morning and he saw the benzene structure in his dreams because he was after this problem for many, many years.
yeah.
One fine day, the eureka moment happens, kind of thing. So that is what AI systems are amazingly good at. Where the companies are able to leverage is the verifiability part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You tell me the conjecture. अब बेसिक काम कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा है वो मैं 2 से 3 महीने में निकाल सकता हूँ. Not the final tested drug that goes to the market. No, that is still
Of
there.
course, of course.
But the conjecture part has been collapsed to like days.
It reduces the number of options to evaluate, basically.
So it can come up with very obscure conjectures that most humans cannot come up with. So that is where.
But
that
there
part
is a lot of verifiability के लिए ना मतलब I think across different domains, specifically in science, right? People will build autonomous labs which can actually verify some of these conjectures nearly autonomously. It will be probably not fully autonomously because you can't only use humans.
But that's a different story. Okay. Any other feedback for me before we guide travel? Okay. Thank you. I don't know if it made sense or not.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Let's also thank JD After Shoot team for letting us
Absolutely.
sit at that stage.
That's the thing. I just had to just
Right,
come
someone.
here. That's all.
Yeah, right.
Cool. So let's meet next month then. Okay.
There's some pizza, so we can eat
Okay.
something and talk over it.
And we would look for speakers. So one technical material, one non-technical topic, right? And we can even